welcome to the 32nd edition of the eDuck podcast. I'm Robby Boydstun, here this week without my co-host Erik Scopel. Erik is down in Palo Alto right now, covering number 5 Stanford taking on number 3 Oregon, which just concluded. Number 5 Stanford upsets the Ducks 26-20. While the final score may indicate that it was a close game, it really was not. Stanford dominated this thing from the get-go, really just taking control thanks to their offensive and defensive lines, opening up big holes for the run game. Kevin Hogan and Tyler Gaffney taking the brunt of the offense there for Stanford tonight. Hogan, 7 of 13, 103 yards passing, didn't need to do much passing because he was able to do it with his legs and rely on Tyler Gaffney. Gaffney, 45 carries, a Stanford school record for 157 yards and a touchdown. Hogan adds 8 carries for 57 yards and a touchdown of his own there in the second quarter. Stanford jumps out to a 26-0 lead on the Ducks up into the fourth quarter until Oregon goes on a 20-point run. Daryl Hawkins, a 23-yard pass from Marcus Mariota. Rodney Hardrick comes up with a blocked field goal recovery that he takes back 65 yards to the house. The Ducks then recover the onside kick. Farrell Brown comes up with a 12-yard touchdown catch, but it's too little too late. Stanford runs out the clock right after that and comes away with the upset there on the farm. Mark Helfrich's first loss as head coach of the University of Oregon. David Shaw comes up with his second consecutive victory over Oregon and puts Stanford in the driver's seat in the Pac-12 North. If they win out, they hold the tiebreaker on Oregon, once again similar to last year after they defeated them in Eugene in overtime. Let's break this down real quick here. You look at the third down statistics. Stanford, 14 of 21, coming up with big third downs via the run game, via that monster formation they love to run, where they stack the offensive line and just let Gaffney roll over them for 3 to 4 yards. Hogan coming up with a couple big 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 7 runs to extend drives, really keeping possession for Stanford, who controlled the time of possession tonight, 42-34 to 17-26 on Oregon. Usually that doesn't factor in for Oregon, but again, Oregon was unable to get any rhythm going offensively as Stanford raced out to a 26-0 lead. Jordan Williamson hit 4 of 5 field goals tonight. The Ducks turned the ball over twice inside their own 5, once on downs, the other one on a DeAnthony Thomas fumble. Shane Scove, who had 10 tackles and 2 fumbles tonight, really the singular star of a stout Stanford defensive effort that kept Marcus Mariota under duress for a good portion of the night, forcing him to throw on the run. Saw a couple jump passes there. Mariota never really looked comfortable, and actually at one point in the game, after fumbling the ball in the third quarter, had to be helped off the field. He did return to the game, played with a little bit more aggression, but again, the Ducks were trying to make up too much of a lead too late. Another bugaboo tonight for Oregon was the penalties. They've been fighting this battle all season. Tonight, it really bit them. 10 penalties for 81 yards. One of those, a pass interference call that overturned an interception early on in the game that resulted later in a Stanford touchdown. Really, Oregon kind of shot themselves in the foot any way they possibly could early on and really couldn't recover going late into the game. You look at the rushing statistics. Oregon only able to put together 62 yards rushing. Byron Marshall gets 11 carries for 46 yards, ending his streak of 100-yard games. You look at DeAnthony Thomas, 6 carries for 30 yards, a little bit more effective in the pass game tonight. They like to use him out of the slot there. 4 catches for 45 yards, but was unable to get the ball in the end zone. Again, had the big fumble there. That really cost the Ducks some momentum going forward. Josh Huff, 3 catches for 42 yards. Daryl Hawkins, 3 catches for 41 yards. Braylon Addison leading the Ducks with 5 catches for 66 yards. But you look at the total yards in this game, and that tells a story. Oregon outgained 377 to 312, a similar story to last year when Stanford came into Eugene, outgained Oregon 411 to 405. Again, last year, they established their dominance with the run game. Hogan threw the ball quite a bit more frequently last year, 25 of 36 for 211 yards, but they relied a lot on Stephon Taylor, 33 carries for 161 yards on the ground to control the pace of the game. They dominated the clock, 37:05 to 22:55 last year. game plan didn't change, and you got to credit David Shaw and Stanford coaches for keeping to that formula. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Marcus Mariota was never really able to feel comfortable back there all night. He didn't have an opportunity to run the ball too much because the game plan deferred away from him using his legs, as Mark Helfrich said post-game. But really, his legs might have been his greatest weapon here if he was able to go. You wonder about the health of that knee. He was wearing a knee brace tonight, and you wonder how that affects him going forward. Oregon should be favored in each of their games going forward. I think that's a given. But the fact of the matter is that this offense starts with Mariota and what he's able to bring to it. But luckily, he shouldn't be facing any lines that are similar to Stanford's going forward, with maybe the exception of Oregon State, who gave Stanford a bit of a rough time there in Corvallis last week. Looking forward, Oregon's loss now pretty much takes them out of national title contention unless they get a lot of help. Florida State would have to lose. Stanford would have to lose again. Ohio State would have to lose just for Oregon to have even a shot at getting back into the race. Right now, their best hope is to try and get back to the Rose Bowl, and that would take a Stanford loss. The Ducks have 9 days to prepare for Utah, and then they have Arizona and Oregon State waiting for them after that. Another issue the Ducks may have to tackle is the possible loss of Josh Huff, who was escorted back to the locker room after the game by the training staff, went down late after a reception there in the fourth quarter. Didn't show it on camera that I saw, but it seems that Huff got up and then fell back to the ground due to some pain. We'll have to wait to see what the diagnosis is on that, see how long he'll be out, if anything. As noted earlier in the year, during his return to the Washington game, Huff is one of the tougher players the Ducks have on their roster, and him being a senior, you can't imagine he's going to want to miss any time, especially after a loss like this. And to kind of wrap up the thoughts on the game from the Oregon perspective here, you look at some of the missed opportunities early for Oregon. A couple of red zone drives that ended in turnover on downs and another turnover. Possible field goals there could have made it a one-possession game late there, so that Oregon wouldn't have been as desperate to score late in the game. You look at it from the defensive side of the ball. Missed tackles, missed opportunities. They couldn't force a turnover. You remember Ifo Ekpre-Olomu's strip of Tyler Gaffney, and the ball bounced right back up into him. Oregon really couldn't catch a break tonight. They tried to make their own luck in certain situations, but a lot of the time they shot themselves in the foot due to dumb penalties or just really an inability to stop the run, sometimes even stop the pass. Tony Washington Jr., an interception going right through his hands that resulted in a Stanford first down early on in the game. You look at some of those types of plays and you wonder what could have been for Oregon, but at the same time, that's why you play every Saturday. Stanford showed up, I guess in this case on a Thursday. Stanford showed up tonight. Oregon was unable to for a large part of that game, and that's why Stanford moving forward deserves to be at the top of the Pac-12 at this moment. And you wonder now what the perception of the Pac-12 is nationally, with Oregon having everybody else's number but Stanford's. I mean, at this point, it's really hard to make a case against Stanford of really being the best team in the Pac-12 conference at this point. Oregon has been able to beat up every other team, but when it comes down to that grinded out, I guess if you want to call it the SEC type style of play, Oregon is unable to kind of fit that bill and stand up to that challenge. And I know they were talking about this earlier on the ESPN halftime show, but it is a good point. You wonder what this does nationally for the perception of Oregon. They've got the speed, the talent, the offense, and most weeks the defense, but when it comes down to playing that nitty-gritty style of football, they just haven't been able to measure up at this point. I don't think this is a call for a different style of football that Oregon needs to play. Obviously, they've beaten Stanford before. You look back at 2010 when they fell down early at Autzen against a Jim Harbaugh coached team, and they responded with a big second half effort and ended up winning that game and going to the national championship game that season. But still, this is 3 years in a row now that Oregon has tried to get back to that national championship game and fallen in a November loss. All right, so let's get to the interview portion of the show. We got quite a bit of coverage here for you, and we're going to start with defensive coordinator Nick Aliotti.
Well, I give a lot of credit to Stanford. First of all, that's a really good football team. A well-coached football team. They dominated the line of scrimmage tonight. Something that I'm sure our guys aren't happy about. But the bottom line is they dominated the line of scrimmage, and we're able to keep the ball, keep our offense off the field. And I think that was really critical in the outcome of the game. I also think that as I go ahead here, that the first touchdown 7-zip on the interception play, you know, that was huge. That call was huge, is all I'll say. And you know, momentum might have swung back our way. But good football team, well-coached football team. I hate saying that they dominated the line of scrimmage because I don't want to sell my guys short. That's the only reason I hate saying that. Okay, they dominated me because my guys are awesome and they're warriors and they fought to the end. And we almost had a chance there had we had a little bit more time. Time just ran out, but they didn't dominate my guys. Okay, they won the game. They won the line of scrimmage. Don't write anything negative about those kids.
Your guys forced 4 field goals too.
You hear me?
You guys forced.
You were right about me.
4 field goals too, Nick. It could have been. I mean, after 14-0, they forced 4 field goals.
You know, we gave them a short field a couple times, and in the second half we gave ourselves a chance. But the bottom line is we let them have the ball too long, and then when our offense had the ball, I think our offense was going to move it. I mean, it showed that they were going to move it, and it's not my place to speak about the offense, but I'm sure there was 3 times I think we were inside the 20 where we lost the ball and didn't get a score, and any one of those could have been critical. I'm just going over the game in my head. Okay, I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody. If I'm going to point a finger, the cameras are pointed right at the finger that I'd be pointing at. Okay. Our kids are great kids. Stanford's a good football team. We got off to not a very good start, down 17-0, and tried like heck to get back into that game, and almost did. That would have been one heck of a thing to pull off, but just quite didn't get it done.
And there's Nick Aliotti doing something Nick Aliotti does, and that's sticking up for his defensive players. A tough one for Oregon tonight. We're going to shift gears to the offense and hear from quarterback Marcus Mariota right now.
Seemed like the first couple of drives just couldn't quite click, and that kind of set the tone for things, and it took a while to get anything going for you guys offensively.
Yeah, you know, we were moving the ball pretty well, I thought. You know, we just weren't able to finish, and a credit to their defense. You know, they had that bend break, you know, kind of attitude, and you know, we were able to get down into the red zone, but you know, they were able to hold us out. And again, hats off to them, they played good.
Marcus, how much could the game have been different if you guys were able to convert earlier on in the ball game with those couple missed opportunities with the underthrow and then the going for it on 4th down?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, it would have been a lot different, I think. You know, it's just one of those deals that happens. You know, at this point in time in the game, you know, you don't think about it, but it's part of the game, and you know, we're gonna learn from it and come back next week stronger.
Marcus, what hurts the most?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, you go out there and you have a good week of practice and just don't pull it out. You know, it is tough and it is hard because a lot of these guys have really worked hard for it. And you know, it ain't over. It happens. You know, we're gonna come back stronger than ever. You know, and we're just gonna take it in stride.
Was their defense similar, Marcus? Was the defense similar to last year, line of scrimmage-wise, closing in on you guys in space and tackling well?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, they played well. They came back with the same mentality, and you know, they went out and executed. We just weren't able to finish drives, and you know, we had some missed opportunities, but that happens, and it's part of the game.
Marcus, what's going on with your left knee?
It is what it is. It's a little banged up, but it's nothing too extraordinary, and we're just gonna take it and get healthy and be ready for next week.
How much did it affect your running game, Marcus? How much did it affect your running game? You personally?
It wasn't that much of a factor. Stanford did a good job of just forcing me to hand the ball up, and it's a credit again to them. They played well.
How much pain were you in?
I don't know. I tend to just not even focus on that thing, on pain, because it's you gotta play with it. You gotta play with that kind of stuff. It happens, and I wasn't too focused on it.
When you got helped off the field, was it touch and go there? You didn't come back?
I'm sorry.
After you got helped off the field, was it touch and go there? Now you're gonna come back?
I told the moment it happened, I told myself to get up and just fight through it. The guys needed it. The guys needed me, and there wasn't a question in my mind that they were going to take me out.
Is the brace at all limiting your running or being able to move and cut?
Not really. I've got to learn to play with it. I've never really played with a knee brace before, so that's something that I've been doing in practice and getting used to.
How much does that affect your decision making?
It doesn't play any into the decision making. You can't think about that kind of stuff. That's kind of when you do get hurt, is when you play tentative and you kind of think about that stuff. So I really was not focused on it, and I just tried to play through it.
So Mariota there not making a big deal out of the knee injury, kind of saying that it's just what happens in football. Sounds like he's going to be fine going forward. I'm sure the couple extra days off will help with that, and sounds like he'll be ready to go for the Utah game in 9 days. We'll keep you posted on that if there are any developments. And he said some inspiring words that I think some Oregon fans out there will like to hear. He got out there, he played through the pain, he tried to get Oregon back in the game, led them on a 20-point run there, but just not enough. We'll have to see how that knee affects Marcus's play against Utah in 9 days. Let's go over to Josh Huff, a guy who was seen as very emotional there on the sidelines there tonight if you saw the ESPN broadcast, and had to be helped off the field. Let's take a listen to his comments.
How are you feeling health-wise? Okay.
What was it about their defense? I think they held you under 100 yards rushing. What was it about their defense this year? Was it similar to last year? Was tackled well, filled space?
Yeah, they just tackle well in field space. They're very disciplined with their gaps, so we weren't able to do our regular cutbacks, and they just ran to the ball, and all credit goes to those guys.
Josh, you looked like you were pretty emotional on the sidelines. What was going through your mind?
It just hurts, just to see everything that we worked so hard for go down the drain.
Is it okay?
Our heart is just broken right now. That's all I got.
A very somber Josh Huff there post-game. You get a sense of what this loss means to the seniors on this team that have gone through a historic run of Oregon football. Every one of these seniors has played in a BCS game each year that they've been at the school, looking to continue that streak. Of course, the pinnacle would be the national title game, something that they saw there in 2010. Josh Huff was a part of that team. Unfortunately, it looks like at this point, Oregon's going to need a lot of help trying to get back into that position. You can understand his frustrations and the emotions that you saw on the sideline and heard there in those comments when you take a look at what's really at stake there for a lot of these guys. Finally, tonight you're going to hear from DeAnthony Thomas, the junior running back / wide receiver. Let's hear what he has to say about the loss.
Great physical defense. They run to the ball and stuff like that, and we just got to just make plays on offense in the first quarter, and we didn't do that, and that set us back.
Was them holding you guys to 20 points more a product of you guys not executing, or more of a product of them having a really good defense?
Not really sure. I just feel like it's us just not executing as an offense.
This is one of the toughest losses you've had, high school, college.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest losses I ever had in my life, and you just got to learn from it and build off of it, and just come back, to practice on Monday and work even harder.
I saw you talking to the fans, late in the game. Why listen to them? You respond. Why not ignore them?
I was ignoring them. That's what I do. I smile at them. That's my my way of ignoring them and stuff like that. And, you know, it didn't get me out of my game. I just feel like, you know, go out there, you know, just work hard and, you know, keep playing, you know, like the men of Oregon.
As great as you guys are, how tough it is to lose to these guys 2 years in a row?
It's very tough to lose to these guys, but I feel like, you know, there's a great team, and we just came out slow.
Anthony, why weren't you able to finish off drives today?
Say that again?
Why weren't you guys able to finish off the drives today?
We just gotta just execute and, you know, just finish. We just have to finish every play, and that's what we didn't do. We just didn't finish.
A little bit more upbeat of a interview there when you listen to DeAnthony Thomas, but I think that's just his demeanor coming through. You saw him smiling there on the sidelines late in the game. I read and heard just a few people, you know, Twitter and even on ESPN of people kind of giving DeAnthony a little bit of a hard time for smiling on the sidelines toward the end of that game because of the magnitude of the situation in terms of what this meant for Oregon losing this game. But again, that just seems to be what DeAnthony does. It really hasn't changed since he arrived in Oregon there in 2011. A big thanks to my co-host Erik Skopel, who was able to corral all of that audio for you guys here tonight to get a real sense of what it was like back there post-game in the locker room area following the Ducks' first loss of the season. So thank you, Erik, for that. I think we're going to wrap it up here with a nice short and sweet recap. I want to remind everybody out there that tomorrow night, Oregon basketball will be taking on Georgetown from South Korea. They will be doing so without 2 players, sophomores Ben Carter and Dominic Artis, who were both suspended for 9 games for a violation of NCAA rules. That game will take place on the ESPN family of networks. For the 32nd edition of the eDuck podcast, I'm Robby Boydstun, and on behalf of my co-host Erik Skopel, we're going to let heavy heaters take you home. We will talk to you next week. We're going to resume our normal podcast schedule, the Wednesday-Saturday slate, with the Utah preview. Talk to you later.